Hey everybody, welcome to this week's live stream. I hope you're all doing great today. Hopefully it's not too hot in your shop. It's temperatures, it kind of cooled off a little bit here, but it's still a little bit warm in the shop, you know, but we're getting through. And so today we're going to do a little bit of experimenting and testing. All right. So one of the questions that I have, and I think a lot of people probably have, is how much of this liquid pigment can you put into a casting? There's a lot of times you hear like, oh, 5% is the most, and I've played around. Honestly, I think I've only gone up to about 6%, and the only thing that I saw with that 6%, you like the more of that liquid pigment that you put in, I believe, and I don't know if this goes for every type of resin, like, you know, every kind of epoxy and all this stuff. My so far experiments really have been Alumilite clear, slow, maybe clear also, the regular version. And I have a feeling that it's not going to matter that much depending on the resin necessarily. Polyester resin tends to be able to handle a lot of stuff. Like you can even put like water-based stuff in there. I'm pretty sure you can use like acrylic paint in polyester resin and it still cures. That stuff is just bulletproof, but it's also extremely toxic and gross. So I don't know. If you really need to do something, like I think a lot of people that do, like, you know, we've talked about like embedding like scorpions and different things. If you're going to try and do that in Alumilite, which is a polyurethane resin, you really have to make sure that there is no moisture in that thing. Otherwise, you're going to get bubbles and it's just not going to work. You may even get cracking. Epoxies are a little bit more resilient against like water, but even epoxy does not like any kind of a moisture or water. Not a lot of it. So even in epoxies, I'm pretty sure you're not able to use like an acrylic paint, which is a water-based paint. But with polyester resin, you can probably dunk a scorpion like that you just picked up off the ground and it'll probably cure and everything's fine. So if you really need to do things like that, polyester resin might be something to look into, but it stinks terribly and it's pretty gross stuff. So, but the one thing about it is it's extremely optically clear. That's another thing. So a lot of people that do the watch parts blanks, or I'm pretty sure Chad still does, you know, like, he does like those bond certificates or stocks and like old documents, paper things. A lot of people that do those types of things use polyester resin. It just tends to not have any problems with the curing, no matter what you throw at it, kind of thing. So that's just kind of a side note. But with this, I'm wondering, you know, how high can we go? So what I was about to say is, when I put a lot, so like up to like 6% in, the only thing that I really noticed, they cured fine. They seemed a little bit softer, and I don't know, because most of the experiments that I was doing, I was like turning the next day and stuff like that. So it wasn't an excellent experiment, but that may be what you might encounter. And eventually, if you put too much in, it just may not cure, kind of thing. Or it may be so soft that it's not a turnable type of an item. But I don't know, you know, that's why we do these experiments. So that's one of the experiments that we're going to do today. Another thing that I'd like to find out, and I'm not sure if we're going to do all of the colors today. I may do some of them and just kind of show you how I set up this experiment so that you could like recreate it. It's not anything special or anything like that, but I'll just show you how I'm going to approach this. But what I want to know is how much do you need to put in to cover a tube so that you don't have to paint tubes. That would be kind of something a little bit extra nice if I can provide that information before you buy the pigment. That way you know, if I put 2% in, I should be good. Some of these things, it may depend, one of the big dependencies is going to be, you know, how thin are you going, what kit, and basically, you know, depending on the kit, some of them will leave a little bit extra. Like the tube is smaller than the component, whereas some tubes are bigger and the components are pretty close. So it just depends on how much you're leaving on there, I guess, in some cases. But hopefully I'm trying to think of I think I'm probably just going to make Sierras because I got a bunch of Sierra tubes. And that should be somewhere maybe in the middle. So, Anyway, so that's another experiment. We're going to pour some blanks that have different amounts of pigment in them, and then I'll turn them down. I don't know if we're going to do that next week or if I'll just do it on my own time. Turn them down, polish them, and see if you can see the tube. So I won't paint the tubes or anything like that. And of course, you know, the way to get around that is just paint the tubes. You know, typically black or white works pretty well. White, if there's a decent amount of like light transference and you don't want the colors to darken, white is a good background just to cover up that tube. The problem is the brass just kind of sticks out like a sore thumb unless you've got gold, like mica powder in your blank. Then you've already got gold in the blank and it doesn't stick out so much. But for a lot of other colors, especially the lighter colors, I usually go with a white. If it's a darker color and you don't really care if it gets a little darker, possibly, black is a good one to go. Black tubes are good to put behind it. Let's see here. So the other experiment. So I have been having nothing but problems ever since the temperature went up. Trying to pour the liquid pigments, so the colors. The whole reason I got into this whole pigment thing was I want to transfer my or convert my team color blanks from the square ones using Alumilite white resin to vertical round ones that make it a little bit easier, number one, for me to cut. It's much easier to cut the vertical blanks. You just hack off the end and you're done. So the wear on saw blades is a lot lower, the amount of cuts, the waste, the time. There's a lot of advantages to round blanks, right? But my other issue is I got into kitless pens myself, and it's a pain to have to knock the corners off to get it round just so you can start doing a kitless pen. And I'm like, well, it would just make sense if I could just transfer everything. The problem is none of my dye recipes for Alumilite white convert to Alumilite clear resin. I'd have to start from scratch. That's why I never did this a long time ago. But I wanted to do it because I think it'll be a little bit better. The problem was, with the temperatures rising in the shop, I was having difficulty keeping the pours the way that I want them, let's say. I've poured thousands of blanks at this point using the pigments, but it was in the winter and everything was going great until it started getting hot. So I was getting pretty frustrated, I gotta be honest, because I'm like, well, this whole thing might have been, this year of me doing all this stuff and money wasted, might have been a problem. What I figured out is if you chill the Alumilite clear, and I knew this, but I didn't know how it was going to actually operate in reality, I guess. But what I've found is if I chill the Alumilite clear slow, it brings down the viscosity. It makes it thicker off the bat. And with the working time, this is why I'd never really tried it before, because I didn't know. We always talk about when do you pour. We're always trying to work to the end of the working time at some temperature when it's thickening up, right? The problem is when it gets hot in the summer in the shop and you've got your jugs of resin just sitting out, the viscosity, what was that? The viscosity of the resin sitting in the jug when it's 76 degrees is a lot thinner, so it's very thin, compared to when it's just, and we're not even talking about massive temperature changes here, right? But my shop in the winter is 68 degrees pretty much on the dot. Maybe 67, but it doesn't really get much higher than 68. And the resin was it's starting out really thin, and you would have to wait till such a high temperature to get it thick enough to where it was working well and I was getting good mixtures. I never really had a problem with mica powders because micas are bigger chunks of stuff, and if you put enough in, it kind of thickens it up anyway, and they just don't tend to bleed that much. Liquid pigments are a little bit more difficult. They're not hard, but with these conditions, I was having a problem. All right, it was to the point where I'm like, I may not be able to switch my blanks because I can't pour them in the summer. But what I'm doing is I have this little chest freezer. I've got like a little temperature gauge thing, like a regulator, and it is set to 55 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'm not really chilling it like to 30 degrees or anything like that. It's not a freezer, just 55 degrees. So that's what I store it at. And what I found is with the 12-minute working time, and I'm sure that this would work also with Alumilite Clear, like the regular set, the quicker, 7-minute working time version. Haven't really tried that because I prefer clear slow, but 55 with the 12-minute working time, everything, this is the thing that blew my mind. What I was worried about is I'd have to do so many experiments trying to find the right temperature, because I didn't know how it was gonna, it starts thicker and colder, but then it's going through, as it's going through the working time, it's heating up and changing. There's a lot of things going on, right? What I found is, I think that if I chill it at 55, and then, and I'm guessing probably even when it gets to like about 85 in my shop, I don't know beyond that, but definitely 80 degrees in my shop, I've gotten it to the point where it's basically the same temperature as I would have used in the winter. So it actually made my life a whole lot easier, because now I'm not going to have to change temperatures or any of that stuff. So I wanted to share that, because that's like a huge deal. And I know that not everybody's going to be like, oh, let me go buy a chest freezer and do all this stuff. However, I don't know if I recommend that you put resin in your like fridge in the kitchen in your house, that you have food in there. This is the tough question. I don't know if that's a good idea. I think if it's in a jug, sealed, I don't know. You're going to have to make that decision. However, if you do have the means and you want to, try this out, the little chest freezers are not that expensive. You can find pretty cheap ones. You could probably find a really cheap one used. Maybe like even a mini fridge would probably do the same thing. And in those things, especially, you could probably find those used somewhere. But I do think that it's worthwhile, and it kind of makes things a little bit easier. So I wanted to share that. Now, what we're going to do as a little experiment, and I haven't done this yet. If you guys remember, we did the patriotic pen, right? And I did a split cut pour, and it didn't split. Like this is not what I wanted. I was going for like side by side red and white. So what I want to do is I want to use chilled resin also for another experiment today with the split cup, with the red and white, and see if we get the same types of results that I expected with that red and white split cup pour with liquid pigments. I'm pretty sure if I was using mica powders, it would have been fine. And like I said, that's the tough thing, is that so far, pretty much for the most part, most of my like swirly blanks and all that stuff, I've pretty much been using mica powders for the most part with those, and they tend to behave fine, so you don't have to go through all this fridge and stuff for the most part. You shouldn't have to, even in the summer. But with the liquid pigments, I want to make sure that if you're going to buy liquid pigments, especially for me, that you're getting good results, and it's not going to be like, oh, I just wasted all these blanks because the temperature messed me up kind of thing. So anyway, that's a lot of talk. Before we get started though, what I wanted to announce, I'm very excited about this. We got the pre-sale live and in effect on my website, okay? So, really quickly though, before you go and purchase anything, I completely forgot to create a discount. So, I got everything else done. So don't order anything yet, please. Don't go over there. Hold on a minute. Let me set up a discount for you guys. What I'm going to do is we're going to do I think we're going to do a 20% discount for the launch. I think that's a good number. It'll get people out there, save you some money to try these things out. There we go. Let me just do this real quick. It won't take that long to set this up on my website. 20% discount code is going to be, there we go. I'm going to copy that. Fact. I can copy a link, so don't use that link yet. I can make a link that it automatically applies it. Sorry for the holdup on this one. There's just 50,000 things that you need to do, and this will go for, I don't know how long this is going to go. A couple of weeks, I think. Let's see here. We'll just run this through I'm going to run this through the like 22nd of June. So we can do this next week and probably one more week after that too. But you guys will get first dibs. I haven't, you are finding out about this first. So in the event that, now I'm going to replenish stock if we run out, but I only have so many, like gallons basically of pigment, and I've, bottled so much. I can't buy 50 gallons of each color. I don't have that much money. So I bought what I could, bottled it. And so I just want to make sure that if you order, if you want to get in there now and get the discount, you make sure that you're getting a bottle, or, whichever colors you want right now. All right, so we got a discount. I'm going to get a shareable link. Collection. Copy. Okay, so this link, use this link. I wish I could delete. Can I delete that? Oh, I can. I removed it. Okay, so this link, and we're going to pin this one, includes the 20% discount. Like, it'll kind of automatic. Make sure that when you're checking out that it's been applied. For anybody that's not getting this link for some reason, the code word that you would add is Color Lab. So 20% off, and they're live. So we got all 5 colors. We got army green, we got robin egg blue, we got coral, we got watermelon, and navy blue. So this is the 5 for the launch. We got 1 ounce and 2 ounce. I'm very excited about these things. Very excited. So my labels, all the rest of the labels are coming Wednesday. So they'll be going out. They'll be shipping out next week sometime for the pre-orders. So here's I'm gonna do overhead here because this camera never wants to work with me. So there, which way do we go? So there we go. Color Lab. We got our labels. We got the 1 ounce and we got the 2 ounce. Now I don't have the labels for all the rest of them. I just tried one to make sure that everything would work. But what I love is the bottles are squeezy. They're not hard and rigid. They'll squeeze out. Now this one's sealed, so it's not squeezing as much as the 2 ounce, but both are very squeezy. We got the same twisty caps. And one thing that I'm very happy about, the seals on these guys, for the most part, should not break open during shipping. They're going to be packaged like I'm going to do, where you put it in a baggie anyway. But one thing that just drives me absolutely nuts is when you get your pigment and the thing is busted open and covered in pigment that is wasted. That makes me mad. So these seals should hold up to shipping. We did a test. I sent a whole bunch to Turner's Warehouse that were sealed, just some little testy ones. And they made it through shipping. They made it through everything. And Chad even did a squeeze test once they got them. So these things should hold up really well. And that's one thing that I'm very, you can tell, I'm very serious. Nothing is worse than you order a nice pigment, you get it, and the thing is just covered in pigment and messy and wasted, and hate that. I don't like messes. But I also don't like wasting money on stuff that busted open, and I wasted half the thing. So hopefully, I can't guarantee every single one is not, if there's some kind of crazy shipping thing where it got smashed or something. I am going to be shipping in boxes only with the liquid pigment stuff. But things happen, so I can't guarantee every single time, but it should be like in the 98, 99%, hopefully, kind of range. So let's see here. Just making sure. Oh yeah, the fires. I heard it's crazy because usually we in the West get so many, so much smoke. There's usually lots of fires, and it seems like it's just coming down and just blanketing, Canada. It's going a little bit more east with this big fire up there. So hopefully it's not too bad. 30,000 people evacuated. Jeez. Oh man. And windy. Yeah, that's what we did was I didn't ship it. I guess I could have shipped it UPS, but USPS, same thing. They tend to screw things up just as bad, but it should be good. I even did testing beforehand. Like I sealed bottles with water in them and I was like, I actually hurt myself trying to squeeze the top off and like they wouldn't come off. So I think these things are going to be good. And the funny thing is, it's not like there's some kind of rocket science involved with sealing things. You just got to get the right one. So Bruce, you already ordered. Thanks, man. That's awesome. And some people were asking about like, oh, are you going to do like a one of every color? We're already doing 20%. I can't discount a one of every color package more than that anyway. So I probably will do that. What I need to look into is on the website. There's, I think, a way where it'll bundle things together. You could choose that bundle, but it's not like I have to like take inventory specifically just for that bundle. Like it'll pull inventory out of the normal thing. It's a whole complicated thing. I'm looking into that, and so I think eventually there will be like a package where you save a little bit of money, buy all of them, and you're good. And then down the road, like I said, the grand master plan is hopefully to launch like a line. And what I'm thinking about with that, like I said, and I don't know how important it is to everybody else on the planet, but to me, if you're gonna have access to all these different colors, I want to let you know how to mix them together to get your own custom colors. Like then you're empowered to do whatever you want to do, right? You don't have to wait till I come out with Robin Egg Blue or request it, and I don't know if I'm going to do any kind of like custom colors like that. It's hard to bottle one thing. It would probably be so expensive for me to sell something like that people are like, okay, I'm not doing that. I'd rather let you have the colors that you need to do whatever you want. That makes more sense to me, I think. So down the road, we might even have like a kit, because I've been doing stuff. Obviously, I've been trying to color match and do this stuff. We'll probably be doing some stuff on the stream, mixing things together. And I'll kind of show you what tools and supplies and things and how I do it. I'm not saying my way is the best, but you can at least, here's our way to do it kind of thing. So the pigments they'll probably be shipping out like end of next week. I get the labels Wednesday for all the rest of I only bought like a small amount with the 1 ounce robin egg just to make sure the label looked correct. That the printing process worked. Sometimes you can look at something, you're like, oh, I designed this beautiful thing on the computer, and then you print it out and you're like, ugh, that doesn't look like what I wanted. I just wanted to make sure before I bought 10,000 labels that they weren't all messed up. So I only bought one to start to make sure, and then all the rest are coming on Wednesday. So I just have to, label everything. So probably by like, I don't know, hopefully by like next Friday, bare minimum, like the following Monday, they should be shipping. So anyway, so that's a lot of talk and all kinds of crazy stuff. So let's get into the experiments here. Number one, I think that, I don't know, I'm very excited to try how much pigment can we put in these things. So the way we're going to set this up, let's see here. One other thing to kind of note, like every color, every pigment is slightly different. And this isn't just my line. This is just how pigments work, I'm pretty sure. There's like different ingredients like basically every color is a different pigment itself. And some are a little bit more opaque than others. And this, there's a whole thing with it, right? And this is kind of across the board. I don't really think that it matters if you're buying Eye Candy, or if you're buying Divine, if you're buying Color Lab, or whatever else is available out there. From what I can tell, they all are probably using the same, I think pigment is pigment. Like you're getting the same like raw materials, and then putting it together with, whatever, the proprietary mix to make the liquid pigment. But for the most part, they all fairly operate similarly. They're different, but the basics are kind of the same. And what I'm saying is there's different ingredients in each color. So then when you mix colors together, you're going to have different mixtures of stuff. And what can happen is there may be more or less. I don't know how it works. I'm not an expert in this stuff. And I don't even think that my pigment supplier is going to explain pigment to me, like all the basics. Or all the technical stuff, I should say. But there could be a little bit of a difference if you, loaded up 10% with white, for instance, versus like blue. I don't know. I'm not going to test every single color. I think if we're putting too much in it, there's probably going to be a point where it's just too much, right? No matter what color it is. So what we're going to do is we're just going to pick one color. I'm going to get something that I got a lot of, probably something that I'm not going to be really using anymore. I've got a lot of bottles of things all over the place. Got to find something that I don't really care that much about, but is similar to stuff that we're going to use. I'm really curious about white because it's a little different than a lot of the other ones, but let's, how much do I have in here? Maybe we'll do like a little bit of different stuff with each one, possibly. I don't know what to do here. I didn't really think of this through, obviously. Well, so what I want to do is we're going to do 6 amounts. I've already done up to 6% in Alumilite Clear Slow, and I think I've probably done that in Alumilite Clear Regular. What I want to do is 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12%. I want to try that range. All right, so we can do 6 blanks. I might even do it in, I don't want to use that. I wish I had, actually, what I might do for this test, I think we're going to go with PVC pipes for this one. That way I can see through there, number one, before I demold it. But the other reason for that is if it's totally jacked up and it doesn't work, it's going to be a pain getting it out of a silicone mold. So we'll do some PVC pipes instead. Let's see if there's any questions here. Tim Olson. Arizona garage temp is warm, yes. I do have a spare fridge. What temp? And where should the pigments be stored? So again, if this is something that you store food in, you know, you're going to have to make the choice on that. I think, I don't know. I think if it's in a bottle, like you don't just stick a cup of resin in there, because that's what some people used to do. I've heard of people like, you know, pouring out their resin and then kind of the A and the B, putting a cup in the fridge for like 30 minutes to chill it down like years ago. I'm not a huge fan of sticking an open cup of resin in a fridge with food that I want to eat. Maybe what you could do is get like a big like Ziploc bag, like a gallon or however big it needs to be for your jug, and then like seal it. I don't know what the safety risks, if any, are. But you know, the raw resin is more. There's more safety risks with the liquid, right? I mean, you can put blanks in your fridge and nothing's going to happen. It's inert. So if it's a fridge that's food's going in, you might want to take as many precautions as possible just to be safe. What I would do, so my fridge here, what I have this set at, and this may factor in, I don't know. In the summer, it gets up to like 80, you know, it may be like right now it's 77 Fahrenheit. It can range, once it gets hot, it generally is like 75 to 85 in my shop. And my thing is set to 55. And I think this little temperature controller thing can adjust. You can set it to be like, be in a range of like, you know, 2 degrees or something like that. It's not going to warm anything up, but it won't let it kind of fluctuate too much. So you can get those, and it's just made by Ink Bird. I just got it on Amazon and it works great. I actually have one for my toaster oven thing too. I would imagine that if your fridge, I think most of them are set to somewhere around 40 degrees or something like that. That's probably okay. I don't know. I haven't set it lower than that, but with the hot temperatures that you have, lower might be even better, possibly. So I think that as long as you can get it reasonably lower. I would probably shoot for trying to get it 65, like below 65 or 60. You know, that's why like 50, 55, that seemed like a pretty reasonable number. The lower you go, the thicker it's going to be. So it's going to be harder to stir in the beginning. And that may actually become detrimental because you may have to sit there and stir it longer to get it fully stirred up if it's super thick. I don't know. Like I said, I haven't tested anything below 55. But somewhere around 50 is probably a good number, I guess, to answer your question. And where should they be? Yeah, so like I said, I would probably try to take now if it's just an extra fridge that you're just sticking whatever in there and it's not really storing food, because I just stick, the other nice thing is if you do have the means to get something like this that's extra, I mean, I store some of the dyes actually in here. I'm going to be storing pigment in here. I don't really want that stuff to get, sitting around in hot temperatures necessarily, like the raw pigment, CA glues, you could put, there's all kinds of things that you could put in there. 5-minute epoxies if you wanted to, and some of those things will, like with CA glue, it will prolong the life compared to sitting out on a shelf at 90 degrees in your shop. So there's other benefits that you can use that fridge for. Definitely cactus juice. That's actually why I bought it. If you're doing stabilizing and you've got a hot shop, I mean, that stuff literally it is possible for it to cure in the jug if it's just sitting out and it's like 90 degrees in your shop. It's a good thing to have if you like I said, if you have the means to have just an extra fridge laying around, space and money. But let's see. Oh, got a picnic. That sounds good. Just extra beer. Yeah, so I mean, those things are all bottled, so that's probably not, like I said, you guys you'll have to make the decision on this. Personally, I don't think I'd be as freaked out. I don't really know if there's really any serious problems with this, but if anybody wants to investigate this further, if you're, before you make the decision to do this and you got food going on, you might call Alumilite or whatever resin brand and see what they say about storing the jug, in the fridge. If there's any issues with that they are like, yeah, I don't think I'd do that. I probably wouldn't either, kind of thing. I haven't talked to anybody about that myself though. Okay, so I've talked a lot. Let's get going here. I'm gonna go off camera real quick. I'm just spraying my tubes, my PVC pipes. Man, I haven't sprayed a PVC pipe in a long time. I sure do like silicone molds. I don't spray them. Just to mention, you can spray your silicone molds. And I highly recommend spraying silicone molds if you're using epoxy. That stuff tends to be a little harsher. I don't know. It may extend the life and make it easier to demold blanks. I mean, eventually, no matter what you're doing to it, the silicone mold is eventually going to wear out. Personally, though, I don't find it necessary to spray. I don't spray any of my silicone molds if I'm pouring urethane in it, so Alumilite Clear Slow. I don't think there's really that many advantages. Now, when your mold starts to kind of break down and be eventually, as time goes on, the more you use it, the more that silicone kind of breaks down and it gets stickier. Now, in that circumstance, it'll be a little easier to demold if you hit it with a spray. But it doesn't solve the problem for sure. And like, if it's getting to the point where it's really difficult to get them out of the mold, it's probably time to get a new mold, But like I said, I haven't had any issues personally with demolding or doing that, as long as the mold isn't kind of on its last legs. They generally tend to demold really easily. So what we're doing here, we're doing the amount of pigment. I've got six tubes. I'm going to label these. That would be a smart idea. I really didn't plan this out. Okay, so this is 7%. We're doing 8%, 9, 10, 11, and 12. What's going to be crazy is, I mean, I really think if you dump 10% pigment in, this is just me going into it, I'm pretty sure you're going to have problems. That's just my guess, but I don't know. And I think it's going to be kind of an interesting thing to see if we can get away with dumping 10% in. I mean, it may be so solid that there may be some things that you could do with that. My problem is that's going to start getting extremely expensive if you're dumping 10% pigment in your blanks. I mean, that's going to be a lot. So, you know, I don't recommend this, but I don't know if there are advantages, and if you can get away with it. Like what I have found is I generally load up the pigment if I'm doing like a color swirl type of a deal. If I'm pouring, you know, especially there's certain colors that are a little bit less opaque. Like yellow's the worst. Okay, yellow is like a very kind of almost translucent pigment. And I actually talked to my supplier about this whole yellow thing. I'm like, is there any way to get like a super opaque? And he's like, yellow is just terrible. It's just not an opaque pigment. So pretty much, I don't think it matters who you buy yellow from. It's going to be on the weaker side, and you're going to have to add more to get the same amount of opacity as other colors, some of the other ones, let's say. Plus it's lighter, which means that darker colors can kind of, you can see through it a little bit more, but just because, you know, dark behind light. So the more you add, the less like bleed you end up getting. And it's not so much that it's bleeding if you pour it at the right temperature and thickness and all that stuff. It's just the fact that if you've got thin strips of it and you've got yellow on top of something darker, it looks muddy. It can look muddy. So the more you put in there, the better off you are. You can even bump it up, you know, add a little bit of mica powder, yellow mica powder to make it better without making it super pearly. That's another way that you can kind of get around that. But I also just find that everything kind of mixes together a little bit better the more you put in there. So it depends on what you're doing, but you don't need to put 5% in there every time. I just want to make sure that everybody knows. There's certain times to do that, and other times you don't really, there's really no reason to. You're just wasting pigment. So we got 6 tubes. I'm going to say that they take about 50 grams each. I can't remember. It doesn't really matter in this case, but so that's about 300 grams. I can get away with this. I'm going to need a lot of little cups because we're putting different amounts in each one. This may be a little bit kind of time consuming, especially after I talked so long. 2, 4, 6. That should hold 50. So let's figure out how much needs to go in here in each one. So 7%. We're doing 50 grams in each one of these guys, so that's 3.5 grams of dye pigment. 8%. Hold on a minute. 50 times 0.0. I gotta concentrate a little bit here. 4 grams. 8%. 1%. Probably just going up by 0.5 every time. So what's happening? 3 point. Okay, it's just going up by. I'm not a big math thinker. 4.5 grams. Okay, I did see the pattern though. 10%, 5 grams. 11%, 5.5 grams. 12%, 6 grams, and 50 grams of resin is going to be a lot. All right, so 11, where's 12? 12, 10, 11, 12, 8, 9, 7. Okay, double check, see if there's any questions here. Yeah, so hopefully, Jim, I answered that question. Technically, release, I don't know. People make the claim that if you put a release on there, it should make them last longer. I got to be honest, I've done that, and I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how much it's going to make it last longer. Now, like I said, with epoxies and certain resins that are pretty hard on silicone anyway, I highly recommend it. It will probably prolong the life. But what I've found is with, and I think it has to do with urethane. If you're using urethane resins, they just aren't as hard on silicone and all that stuff. They don't tend to break it down as quick. I don't know. I don't really think that I would have gotten a whole lot longer life had I sprayed every single time with my molds. And it's not like I'm using any special silicone with the Gatling molds or anything. The P-Town and all that kind of stuff, they all are probably going to last the same amount, you know. It's up to you. I figure that the other thing is, like I said, especially with Alumilite Clear Slow, the amount of spray release that I'm putting in there, if you add up how much you use over the life of that mold, if it diminishes like 10% or if it extends the life of that mold 10%, but you've spent however much on spray release, maybe it washes out. I don't have the math on that, the numbers, but I'd rather just not spray them personally if I don't have to. The other problem that I have is then you demold them and they're all kind of greasy and slimy anyway. Don't like that. Okay, so I don't even know. Let's see here. I think I can get away with, there should be no difference effectively between using a Alumilite Clear regular set and slow set. It's, you know, it really is just, those two are so similar. I think I'd rather use the regular rather than using my slow, just because I use the slow for my, you know, blanks that I sell. So I don't think that that's really contaminating the test, the experiment really. It's pretty much going to be the same thing. And it'll be a little bit faster. I can demold them quicker. So let's get some gloves on. We'll get an overhead view going. And spin. 300. So I'm going to add a little extra to the mixing cup. We're going to go with about 320. Just so that because there's going to be some left over when I'm dumping, you know. So we're going to go about 320. Where's my, today is what, 6, 7? Okay. We're doing 7 through 12%. Grams each. We're doing PVC pipes. We're using regular clear. So I just got to pick a pigment that I've got enough of. Let's see here. Actually, you know, I don't want to use that one. All right, give me 1 second here. Where did I put the... I just need to cover up some proprietary stuff here. Nice thing about these bottles, you can write all over them. And I wrote all over this one. All right, so I got a couple colors. I don't, like I said, I'm not sure that it's really going to make that much difference. You know, there may be some slight differences between the colors, but I don't think it's going to be big enough to really care, you know, to matter that much. So I think it'll be kind of fun to try some different colors out here. And I can use stuff that, these were all like experimental things that I didn't really like. So let's see here. I gotta make sure that I have enough though. So we got 5, 6, yeah, okay, I got plenty. Should have plenty. Ooh, that's a good one. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And find another one that's pretty decent here. Actually, let's go with this one. We'll do a green one too. Actually, I guess we got 2 greens. That's okay. Okay. Zeroed that scale out. Mike Johnson's got a question. Is it going to make a difference based on the color? I kind of mentioned that before. Every pigment is different. And I mean, there could be some differences, but here's the thing. There's no way that I'm going to do an experiment like this with every single color anyway. So I don't think the differences are going to be so severe that, like, you know, that yellow is going to work through 20%, whereas green only goes up to like 7 or something. I don't, you know, maybe there's going to be like a slight difference between like 8 and 9%, but I don't really think that it's going to be so severe that we really have to worry about that. So let's see, we're doing 320, 300. Hold on, let me write notes down real quick. Okay, so we're doing 320 total. I'm making a little extra. We only need 300, but there's going to be a little bit left over in the cup, so I probably don't even need that much, but that's okay. We'll just do 160, 157, sneaking up on it. There we go. Okay, part A is in there. Yeah, now when it comes to PVC pipe, that's a totally different story. Every single time you need to use mold release on that because they tend to get stuck in there. But with silicone molds, depending on the resin that you're using, So let's see here. Hopefully I got enough time for this. 160. Okay, got 160. Chuck that in the back there. Stir this guy up. Hopefully, yeah, you guys can see. And so it's good to do little tests like this, you know, depending on what's going on. A lot of times I would probably recommend just doing like a pen blank if you're trying to test something. I don't know that it's very useful to do a test and only pour like 20 grams of resin total. That can tell you certain things, but it's a little bit better to pour a decent amount to just make sure that, you know, you've got a test. So one pen blank, that's not that much resin to waste on a test. You know, obviously I'm doing 6, but you know, per experiment, that's probably what I would recommend. We don't have to be even like super perfect on this necessarily. Pretty close to these numbers ought to do. And again, guys, with any pigment, I don't care what kind, what brand or any of that stuff, you always want to shake these things up. These, you know, the opaque style pigments for sure. Always shake them because the pigment tends to settle. So let's see here. We need 6 grams of this stuff. I'm gonna be blown away if this just works at 12%. We maybe should, I should have just done 12%. See if that works first, and then go from there. The reason that you, for anybody that like doesn't know, the reason why there's like a maximum is it doesn't have to do with like the pigment proper itself. It has to do with the fact that there's other things to make it liquid. Because like I'm pretty sure, and I don't know, don't totally quote me. I don't know exactly what I'm talking about, but if I understand correctly, pigment is dry. It's think of it almost like a mineral or something. There's you know, whatever. It's a dry thing. The actual color thing is a dry thing that to make it liquid, you need to add something liquid. All right. And so that's actually, I think, if I understand correctly, that's the problem. And if you put too much of this stuff in, whatever that, you know, liquid that creates the liquid part, whatever it's mixed with is the problem. And eventually it can react with the resin or just cause issues with curing. So just to kind of let you know, with like mica powders, there's no, you can add, I mean, if you really want to, you could dump the entire bottle in the resin and it's fine. So, you know, certain things, it really doesn't make any difference how much you add. I mean, it'll kind of change the properties a little bit of the, you know, the final resin possibly, but it's not going to cause like a cure problem totally. You can add as much as, oh, yeah. Let's put some resin in there first. Talking and thinking. Oh, went a little bit over on that one. I'll just add a little extra. So that's a 5 gram. We'll go to like 5.1 just to make sure that a little bit of extra isn't too big of a deal. Isn't skewing any results. And I can pour these right away. I mean, there's no real reason. In fact, I think it's probably a better idea that I do that, just so I don't get myself in trouble. And it'll kind of clear out space for me here. So 11% going in here. The only reason we really need to wait for a specific temperature, you know, the only reason we do that is if you're like pouring and mixing things together, or you've got something that could like sink or float. And I mean, you could maybe make the argument that some of the pigment stuff could move around a little bit if you pour it right away, but for the most part, there's really, you know, that whole waiting for a specific temperature thing, man, this is starting to warm up really quick. Clear slow would have been a lot easier. Okay. 4.5% on this one. This is the 9%. Nope. 4.5. Should have used the yellow for the big one. And so, you know, one of the problems, maybe you could add more yellow pigment into the mixture, but yellow tends to be one of the most expensive ones anyway, so already. So if you add more to it, it's just going to make it cost even more. Oh, this is getting pretty thick. 9%. We may not get 7% done. We'll see here, 50.8. Problem with the regular is the quote unquote gel period. Let's do this burgundy. Is much slower, or like, you know, it's faster. You don't have as much time during that. The end, it tends to, let's see, 4 grams here. .1, that's okay. I may not get the 7% in. I think I'm not gonna, this stuff's getting too thick. Frankly, I don't think 7% is gonna tell us a whole lot anyway. That 7% one. I want to make sure we get this experiment to work over it setting up. Now, I mean, technically, if we should technically see issues if it doesn't work, but I want to make sure that we do things like I normally would. And I think what I might do is just pour the rest of this stuff in with 7% without pressurizing it. I have a feeling that the 7% would have worked okay. Anyway, I've already done 6, so. Oh, that's getting thick. I think I made the right decision, guys. And then this one is, shoot, I don't know if I'm going to get this in, 3.5. I made the right decision. Whoo, that's thick. What I don't like totally about this as an experiment, I don't trust this one as much, because it had already kind of set up, you know. So if you poured it normally, you know, that, oh shoot, I gotta get this stick cleaned off so I can reuse it. Whew, just in time. So I'm not sure that I totally trust the 7% here in this experiment as much. That's enough to make me say, I think we should maybe try that again. You know, if it works or doesn't work or whatever. So we got 8 through 12. That ought to be plenty to tell us, you know, what's going on with this stuff. Does seem like the 7% is setting up. But like I said, I don't know that I totally trust that because it was already kind of setting up anyway. before I got it in there. All right, so I'm going to take the gloves off. The gloves are coming off, guys. The gloves are coming off. All right, Mike, have a good weekend. Translucency of the wet resin on the stir stick. Yeah, we'll do that next. That generally is fine. It works because that's what I recommend for mica powders. Typically you're stirring it, and if you just pull a little bit out, you've only got a little tiny bit kind of over that stick. And if you can see the wood grain through it, then you're probably going to be able to see the brass tube. But I don't know, we don't know for sure. So what I'm kind of more interested in is saving people money. What is the minimum that you need to add, right? I'm sure if you add 5%, you're fine. But can we get away with, 0.5%, 1%, especially when you're talking about the whites, anything that's got a lot of white in it. White is the most opaque out of pretty much any of these pigment lines. It's a very opaque pigment. A lot of times black can be, but they vary. It depends. But like white especially, I think it's kind of larger chunks of color. What they use for the pigment is a little bit bigger, and it just tends to obscure light a lot better. So in that case, you could probably get away with like 0.5%. And we're fine. So I'm just going to go up to like 2%. Let's see, what was the plan here? I don't want to do like 50,000 experiments. Let's see, 1 and 3. But I do know, like I said, yellow is pretty transparent, like translucent. I mean, it still makes it, opaque kind of. It's not like it's see-through. Not like the translucent yellow from Alumilite. It's not like that. But it tends to be on the more translucent side. So I'm just trying to think how to do this. What I'd like to do is let's see, that'd be 10. Trying to think of how I can do this and not have to waste like a ton of resin and time doing all this stuff. Originally what I was going to do was 1 and 3% of each of the colors. So what we're doing is my pigments that are the line that are coming out. What I will say is the watermelon, coral, and watermelon and coral have quite a bit of the white in it as part of the mixture. And that tends to be the case with a lot of those. The navy blue is going to be a little bit more possibly on the translucent side. Same with possibly the army green. And then coral is kind of in the middle. It's a little bit more opaque. It should be. But I'd say less than robin egg and watermelon. Is that correct? Generally. Robin egg is going to be the most. So I think we don't even need to do every single color because some of them are very similar. And I might do this experiment, down the road with other things like when I get time. But let's try doing, I want to see what the army green looks like with like 1% and then I think the numbers that I want to use actually is 0.5% and 2. Let's do 0.5% and 2% on those guys. And I'm trying to think which mold I want to use. So we're going to go with the robin egg, navy, and army, I think. Oh hell, let's just do them all. That'll be 10. Definitely using clear slow for this one. Sorry guys, I'm just trying to think of, I got to pour blanks today, like other ones. So I'm trying to manage what I got going on here. Actually these molds, This is 14. So this will be in, that's not going to tell me which one is, well, I guess it doesn't matter. There's only 2 of them. Okay, yeah, that'll work. So one of these is going to be 2%. One of these is going to be 0.5. 0.5%. I think that'll give us a good indication of what's going on here. Oh, Frederick, you just bought all of them? Nice. Did you get the discount? Did you see the discount thing? If you, and I can go back and put it in if you didn't do that. But if you use the, oh, I forgot to, I need to put the, hold on guys, I gotta go back. I need to pin the message so that you guys, that if you come a little later. So if you enter Color Lab, when you check out, you get 20% off during the launch. So this is the pre-sale, just to let you know. I'm waiting, I got everything bottled pretty much. The problem is I don't have the labels for pretty much all the colors. I only bought one for the 1 ounce Robin Egg just to test it. And so those are all done, but the rest of them, the labels will be in my hand on Wednesday. So I'm hoping to start shipping hopefully by Friday next week, maybe Monday. I might have to kind of, it depends on how long it takes me to label all these things. Maybe Monday, the following Monday. But yeah, if you didn't enter that, just let me know and I can go in and add the 20% off. Well, Jim, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually turn these. I'm going to actually tube them, glue them in, and do the whole thing. You can look at the stick, and that's generally good. I'd rather actually just turn these, you know, and be like, yeah, you can see the tube through this thing. Because there is a little bit of a difference there. You know, it's liquid and light may actually tend to want to go through a little bit better, but if we can get away with 0.5% and you can't see the tube, then and like darker colors usually, so that's the other thing that kind of plays into this. You kind of need to see what's going on because sometimes the darker colors like army green, I don't think you're going to really be able to see the tube anyway that much. It's not going to be apparent, at least. Navy blue, same thing. It's probably going to be a little bit more difficult unless there was like an area where you could really see through. With the like lighter, brighter colors, that contrast between the brass and that color may just be kind of like in your face kind of thing. Okay, so I got 2 molds here. Switch to the overhead here. So we're just going to do all of them. Number 2. All right, so I have a feeling that 2%, the reason I picked 2% is I think that that's going to be like a guaranteed no-brainer. You put 2% in, you're going to be good. What I'm curious to see is the 0.5. And so if we get a variance on any of these between 0.5 where you can see through on 0.5 but you can't on 2%, then I'll come back and do a 1% test kind of thing. But I think 2% generally that should work for maybe not yellow. I don't know, that one might be kind of a pain. I don't have, you know, we don't have any yellows in my line. We're only doing the ones that I'm coming out with, but hopefully this will help out. So we're doing, let's see here. These take, how much do these take per? About 55. This should be plenty, I think, but. Oh yeah, that should be more than enough, but 390. I'm going to mix up 190. Let's see, that's for, no, I need 10 blanks here, so 550. So let's see here. 0.5% is about, it really kind of depends on what the exact amount of this is, but I guess I'll be mixing it in a cup. So I'm gonna have 55 grams no matter what. So 55 times 0.005, whoops. 0.05. So it's, of course it's like a weird number, 0.275. So I'm gonna put in 0.28, and then 2% is 1.1. Okay, for each one of these guys. Now, one thing to also keep in mind that I should mention is the weight. So we're doing this by weight, not like a volume type measurement. The one thing is also white. If any of these pigments have a lot of white in it, it's going to be a heavier pigment, which means technically you're putting less in, but it's got the white, which makes it so it'll probably balance out. But there are some differences in how much these things weigh, each color kind of thing. So just keep that in mind with this test. But that doesn't really matter. We're going to get the answers here no matter what with the numbers that we're using. Okay, so I need another bunch of cups. This time 10. Hopefully I got enough. Hopefully, what the heck is going on? Oh, I got stuck my mold in something. I'm just going to wipe that up. Must have had a little bit of a drip on one of those pores or something. Or maybe it came from somewhere else. I don't know. That's the fun thing, guys. When you start playing with pigments, they get everywhere. Okay. 1, 2, 3. And then after this one, I'm very excited because we're going to try the red and white test. Hopefully we'll have enough time to do that. So many cups. So as you guys can see, I mean, the biggest problem with doing, people talk about doing like a 10 color pour or like a 50 color pour. The tough thing is you got to mix up every single one of those cups, and that's where things get a little bit more difficult. So just keep that in mind. If you're looking to do something like that, you're gonna have to adjust. Most likely, you're gonna have to adjust that temperature that you're pouring at, because the stirring and all the things that are going on, and then you're gonna have to pour all these things also. The time factor adds up, and it's good to adjust downward a little bit. All right, so 550. Where's my notes here? 550. So I need about 280 times 2. Put some gloves on and we will get rolling here. Kev's here, what's up? Yeah, so, going back to Jim's comment about checking, looking at the stick. Rather than having to do a bunch of experiments and stuff, a lot of times what you can do is just, in the moment, add some pigment. That's a much easier way to do it, and you get a pretty good idea of what's going on. You add some pigment, let's say 0.5%, mix it in there, and then pull some out on your stick and look, and if you can see the stick through there, you probably need to add more. So it's not like this is that big of a deal, but it'd be a lot easier if, when you're checking out and like you buy the robin egg, if I can just say add this much minimum to cover your tubes, then you don't have to mess with it. Just trying to save people time by just doing the experiment myself, and being able to pass on that information. All right, so like I said, For anybody that showed up a little bit later, at the beginning, and I was very, oh, whoops, what did I do here? Huh. Oh, this is going to get confusing. Okay, that almost was a tragedy right there, guys. I pulled the part A for the Alumilite white and the part A. I usually only keep the Alumilite white in that fridge. Now it's a different story. So let me get this poured here. So we need 280 part A. So with the temperatures rising in my shop, I was having a little bit more difficulty keeping these liquid pigments. I'm trying to make team colors, you know, mixing liquid pigment with liquid pigment. So kind of swirly, you know, blanks just with liquid pigment, no micas or anything. And not to say that they're hard, and they were pretty good, but you know, selling blanks, I had an expectation. I was getting less than stellar results, let's just say. And some colors worked fine, others just didn't. But as the temperature was rising, I usually leave my slow out, and I realized I just can't do that in the summer. Like, I wouldn't have been able to get consistent good results with every color for those team color blanks that I'm trying to come out with, vertical poured ones with the liquid pigments. So if you're having any issues with that, color bleed or whatever, it does help to, you know, chill the resin. What was I doing? 280. 280. Yeah, okay, 280. Because it starts out thicker. The cooler you can get the resin, the thicker it is. And it just makes things a little bit better for you. That's the wrong stick, but that's okay. To try and keep that color bleed. Now, I have never had an issue with mica powders in the summer. I've been pouring vertical mica powder blanks for years now, and I don't see the need to do that if you're using mica powders. But with the liquid pigments, they just tend to be a little bit easier to kind of, you know, bleed together a little bit more. Especially like certain colors tend to bleed. And you can really minimize that if you can start your resin out thicker if your shop temperatures are starting to go up. Now it's 77, like once it got over 75 in my shop, maybe even like over 74. And on top of that, it also, the other factor that's involved with this issue is how much does it cool off like overnight? Like, is that 75, is it constantly 75? Because that's different than, you know, at the peak warmth of the day, it's like it hits 75 in the afternoon, but it's dropping and then, you know, the heater's kicking back on or something. So I need 50, what do I need here? 55 of each. I may have bitten off more than I can chew here again. There's a lot of cups. So I'm gonna focus on the 0.5% first. I'm just gonna go for it. And I've got watermelon sitting right here, so I'm just gonna start there. .5% is 0.28 grams. So we're gonna have to go to 0.3. Oh crap, I went way over. Okay, we're gonna go to 1.1. We're gonna go with the 2% first. I don't think I'm gonna have enough time to do all these. Okay, 1.1. To try and keep things somewhat okay here, I'm gonna do it like this. Okay, so we got watermelon. This gets really complicated. I highly recommend don't make things overly complicated and try and do it all at once if you don't have to. All right. So, and again, there's really no reason for me to like sit and wait for some magic temperature with this. I'm just dumping one color in. So I don't think it doesn't really matter in this instance what temperature I pour at. All right, we got 55 again, and I should have a coral in here somewhere. There's a coral. So I'm doing 1.1. Nice. Okay, so we got watermelon and coral. I'm just going to chuck these. I love that coral. And make sure you mix it in well, you know, before you pour it. Look at that coral. That's awesome. Okay. Where's my robin egg? There it is. Oh, it's got a flip top cap. These stupid flip top caps. Thought that I found like a really great solution. And they are not great. We went with twist caps. Whoa, way too much. This is the tough thing, is everything has to be pretty precise if we're doing some experiments, you know. There's a lot of back and forth sometimes. I measure, yeah, I just use like a teaspoon, you know, like the measuring spoons. You don't need to be anywhere near. Now, even with the, you know, these opaque pigments, typically you don't have to be so accurate. You know, if you're around 1%, if that's like the number that seems to work out, you know, whatever, that's not that big of a deal. But for this experiment, we have to. And then with mica powders, you know, whatever, those aren't super dependent on a lot of stuff. Ooh, look at that, 1.1 on the dot. Now, if you're trying to go for a very specific color, like color matching, that's when things get really crazy. You gotta be very accurate with the amount of resin in some cases, and then the amount, like you gotta be, you know, really on the dot with putting it together. Depending on, you know, the big factor is how much pigment can you use. That's the problem, is if you're trying to mix pigment into a fairly small amount of resin, then it's going to be a small amount of pigment, and it gets more difficult. If you're mixing huge amounts of pigment together, then, you know, if you can pre-mix it, and that's where I think the advantage is. That's what, you know, I was talking about, coming out with a line of pigments and letting people, you know, mix their own colors from scratch, and kind of showing you guys how to do it. That's eventually that's what I'd like to see with the Color Lab pigment line. There's just a lot of benefits to doing it that way. I can't come out with every single color on the planet personally, and it gets costly for you compared to just having the, you know, raw colors. You can make whatever color you want. You don't have to go buy another one. You know, another 1 ounce bottle just to make watermelon necessarily, or whatever. But let's see here. Army green. Actually, I got navy blue here. Is this the right one? Yeah. 1.1. I'm going to be amazed if we can actually get all these done at once. I have a feeling I should have split these into 1.1. Okay, let's see. Can you put the pigment in the cup? Okay, you can, but some pigment is going to stick to the cup. I'm a little bit anal, and I don't know that that's totally necessary. There's tons of people that just dump pigment in before and do it that way, and that's fine. But I don't know how much pigment is not making it in there. My other problem with doing it that way is you may end up just dumping some not mixed. I don't know. What I'm worried about is that some unmixed pigment just ends up kind of floating in the middle of resin when you pour it. And when you cut into it, it's just a blob of pigment. Pigment doesn't cure. It needs to be mixed in well with the resin for it to like cure and not just be a mess when you turn it. So I don't know. I have little things about that. I'd rather just not do it that way personally. For mica powders, I do that. That's how I do it. I just put it into the cup beforehand. Oh, man. This is tedious. Okay, we need, what's the last one? Army green. I don't have an army green. I'm gonna have to steal one from the inventory, guys. Give it a mix. We get to see how the seal works. See if we can get this seal off. I think I'm gonna have to cut this seal off. That might be the easier way to go on these seals because they are bulletproof. You might be able to peel it off if you can get your fingers in there. I'd rather just, for the purpose of time savings. All right, so we need 1.1. I think I did all these correctly, guys. The 2% bucket is good. Look at this army green, guys. What do you think of that? Oh, I love that color. And it works good if you're going for like, like plants and things. Like I think of like a kind of a camo or like a, old school Jeeps, army vehicles. And that was obviously kind of the inspiration, but there's a lot of, that's a pretty good, it's like a vibrant, like vegetation green too, also. Could be used that way too. Okay, so man, that was, like I said, that was tedious. Got that done. I'm going to put this in the pressure pot right now. Get that out of my way. Now, I'm going to take the temperature of this resin and see where are we at. Okay, we're still doing great. We're still doing great. Now, this one I need to be very careful. You were hoping I would take temps? For what purpose? Lost half of my fast cure resin by not pouring quick enough. Yeah, well, the fast gets a little rambunctious. 1 minute. Huh. If it was really humid, that could have caused a problem also. So what do I need here? 0.5 is 0.28 grams. So 0.3 is what we're going for. Okay, I don't want to go too far over 0.3, you know, because technically that's already over 0.05. So here's the Army Green with 0.05 in it. And it's pretty see-through. I'm going to be completely honest. I don't think that's enough for the green. I don't know if you guys can see that, but I have a feeling you'd most likely you'd see the tube with that one. But this is kind of interesting because I should have done that on the other ones. Didn't think about it. There's a lot going on, and I feel like it'll be a win if I can just get through this without it curing on me. This is a lot of steps. And the other, you know, somebody asked about just dumping it in. So the problem is if I'm only putting 0.3 grams, how much is actually getting in the resin for these experiments? I don't think it's accurate enough to do it that way. Ooh. Looks like we made it. Now, this is probably going to be interesting because, again, the Army Green I kind of expected to be more on the transparent side. Watermelon is going to definitely be more opaque than the green. And then the robin egg should be the most opaque. That's probably pretty good. I still don't know though. I'd probably go to 1% just to be sure. But like I said, sometimes, you know, you can look at the stick and you're like, yeah, I don't know. It seems like I can see through there. But that's why I really want to turn these down and see, okay, what does it really look like with brass actually behind it? Because in some cases, like I said, depending on the color, the brass may stick out like a sore thumb. Whereas with the same amount with a different color, it just kind of blends in. Like you don't actually even see it. Even though it may be kind of see-through, let's say. But that brass just doesn't show up as much. All right, so we got coral. I think coral's a little bit more see-through than the watermelon, if I remember correctly. So that'll be kind of an interesting one to see. I think in most cases with these pigments, even with the green, I'm pretty sure 2% is going to be fine. But I don't want to make that claim until I've actually seen for sure. Starting to heat up a little bit. I think we might still make it though, as long as I can not mess around too much with these last two. So here's the coral. Yeah, it's pretty similar to the watermelon. Might need to go up to 1. I'd probably go to 1% on this, but I'm very... The problem is I always paint tubes. I mean, I use the ones from Turner's Warehouse, typically the powder coated ones. So I don't really have a whole lot of experience on like, okay, you know, this one sees through. I always just, you know, make sure. And that's really kind of the best policy. You don't have to worry then, but sometimes you can't really do that. You can't really get away with it. All right, so then we got robin egg, and this one should be the most opaque. I would imagine that 0.5 is probably enough on this one. Or whatever, 0.5%. Don't put too much in here. There we go. I hate that cap. I'm going to switch that cap out to a twisty one. So here's the robin egg. It should be pretty good and solid, even at 0.5%. So Jim, again, I don't know exactly what the temperature question was, but like what you needed from that. But if you start getting up to like 130, I mean, depending on what's going on, if when you start hitting like 120, things are probably too late. I don't know if that was kind of the question, like what temperature am I going to be starting to get screwed at? You know, and it, like I said, it kind of depends on where you're starting, what the starting temperature is. But if it was 75 in my shop, I don't know if I'm going to get 55 grams out. It's pretty thick. I don't know what temperature we're at. That's close enough. 53 times. Taking time to do this, 0.27. Same thing, 0.3. 75 in my shop. If I was using, and I don't have a lot of experience with regular. That's another problem. But I would probably say if it starts to get to like 115, I would start hurrying. Because the problem is you just don't have as much gel period time. Like there's just not a lot of time. Once it starts thickening up, it starts to kind of kick quick. Whereas the slow version, that's why I use slow. It just, you've got a longer gel period. You kind of can start hitting that temperature and things kind of start locking up earlier, but stay in kind of a gel state, let's say. I didn't pull that out. We're starting to kind of get a little bit close here on the timing. That one's a little bit short, but I should be able to get it out of there. Okay. Put that in the pressure pot, and we got 2. We made it. And I think I may end up going back and looking at the video. I think I got all the numbers correct. Hopefully. Whew. 152. Okay, I think we got enough time to do the red and white also. So let's see here. I was hoping. Let me know if I'm missing what the thing was with the temperature and time. You're definitely going to have a lot more time with the slow. Now, one thing, you know, we already mentioned it. If you refrigerate the regular, you're going to have a longer working time. You're going to have more time to work. And again, going back to what I was saying at the beginning, what I found. So I have a fridge. I was finding that once it starts getting, you know, it was starting to hit like 78, 80 degrees in my shop, and I was having issues. With the liquid pigments, I wasn't getting results that were consistent or that I was happy with. What was happening was I'd have to start pouring at a temperature where it's really kind of too thin. So the bottom of the blank was a little bit, there's a little bit muddy on the bottom, and then it'd be a little bit better. But I didn't really have enough time. Things were not working out right. So I decided to try refrigerating the clear slow. And what I found is it basically, normally my shop's 68 in the winter. So like for more than half the year, my conditions are the same. And I know exactly what temperature, time, and all that kind of stuff. What I found though is, and I don't know if this is going to work in every single temperature and climate and all these things, but I've got this thing set at 55. So I'm keeping the resin at 55 all the time. And with the 12-minute working time, clear, slow, I can get it out, put it in. I'm doing like 2 or 3 colors, usually maybe 4. So it's I'm not doing super, I'm not setting up for a long time. So one of the factors that could be involved is okay, so great, it's at 55, then I pull the jugs out and they're sitting here forever as I start, getting things like ready. It's going to start thinning, and 80 degrees is going to be a lot different than 90 degrees for the amount of time that between taking it out of the fridge and getting things prepped. It can start warming up and thinning a lot faster if it's like 90 in your shop or something like that. Okay, so there's going to be some variance going on. I think for me, I think this is going to work for pretty much, I'll be good. My temperatures in the shop usually don't get above 85. So I would say that that's probably good. But what I found is doing it this way, I can use the same temperatures that I was using when it was 68 degrees, and I would just leave the resin sitting out on the desk. So in the winter times. So what it effectively did was it made everything a lot easier for me because I was able to get good results, but I was also not having to change the temperature. So, and the reason that I say that is you may not have to wait longer at like a higher, because generally that's what I would do is when it was like 80 degrees in the shop, what I would have to do, and again, this is with my resin jugs, I wasn't storing the Alumilite Clear Slow in the fridge. I've never done that in the past. The only resins that I actually kept in there was Alumilite White, because that stuff is just terrible. 2-minute working time. But if my Clear Slow was sitting where it normally does on the desk and it was 80 degrees in the shop, I would just adjust the temperature that I started pouring at up, and that worked fine for mica powders. It was fine enough. But the fridge may help you. It should give you a little bit more working time. You've got more time to get things going. But hopefully what it will allow you to do, and it depends on the temperature and you'll have to play with this, but if you can chill it to somewhere around 50 or so, it should give you more time, but also allow you to use whatever temperatures you were pouring at when it was colder, or whatever, at a lower temperature in your shop. Hopefully that made sense. That is a battle that I've had, and if I had one wish, personally, I would climate control my shop and have the same temperature all year round, because when things start changing around, it makes it extremely difficult. The way things turn out massively change when it starts to, when the temperatures are fluctuating. So I'd always have to kind of battle that. And hopefully now, I wish I would have thought to do that a long time ago. If I would have done it years ago, it would. Although I wasn't really having any problems with the Clear Slow then. Like I said, if you're using mica powders, I think you can just adjust the temperature and it should be okay. All right, now the third and final test that we want to do here, we're going back to the red and white. So I poured the red and white when we were doing the patriotic blank, and I'll go get the pen again. And it totally did not work. Every single time that I've done a split cup pour with 2 colors, and even 3, I've been able to almost get it to where it dumps into the tube and the 3 colors just pour straight up. Even with liquid pigment, I don't know. So then I tried it with red and white and it totally didn't work. I mean, I got white on the bottom and red on the top. So, but I was also, that was before I figured out this chilling the resin thing. So we're gonna do one more experiment using the chilled Alumilite Clear Slow and see if we can get the red and white to do what it did before. I gotta look around here. What am I doing? 6 blanks. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna use this one. Use the pre-dyed white. Oh, white. Yeah, okay, that has a 2-minute working time. 2. That's the stuff that I'm getting away from with team color. That stuff is terrible for timing. You can't. And this, so going back to it, a lot of people always ask, well, why don't you show us how to use the Alumilite white? Because you have to do it so differently than every other resin on the planet that I don't find it to be useful. And I have tried helping people use it, and they literally, after 30 days of giving it the as much try as they could, they were like, I can't even figure this stuff out. It's terrible. So be careful with that stuff. I'm not saying you can't use it or anything like that. Do you, but I'm not going to try to help because I've tried, and the only reason that I was able to like work with, why I'm able to work with it is because I chill it. I have a very, I mean, I'm talking, if you think I'm like anal about the way that the reason I'm so anal about the way that I do things is because of that resin. You have to be, if I'm off timing wise by like 5 seconds, the pour is done. Like it's blown. It doesn't work. So be careful with that one. It's hard to get good results with Alumilite white. And I just don't think that there's very many advantages to buying that resin and using it when you can't use mica powders with it. You have to use liquid pigments. The big advantage is it's totally opaque when it cures, but 2-minute working time is all you get. And I'm talking, and then when it's 85 degrees in your shop, you probably get about 1.5 minutes to get it done, poured, and in the pressure pot. So that one's a tough one. Very tough one to work with. The only thing that I will say is you're going to have to mix the dye in ahead of time. Okay, you can't measure your cup and then be like, oh, 5 grams of blue. You have to have it, and you got to pour them in separate cups, and that's one of the big reasons why I will not demo that, because that's not the way to do it. That's not the way to use most resins, right? So just, that one's a tough one. Yeah, the mash color. Yep. And there's no time to be taking, I don't mess with temperatures with Alumilite white. There's no reason to do it. I don't have it. You can't do it. It has to be muscle memory timing. And it took me probably 5 years to get good at, I mean, for the first couple of years of me pouring blanks like that, with that resin, they were okay, but they weren't that great. It probably took me about 5 years to really figure out a consistent way of doing things to get pretty good results. And I still blow pores left and right with that stuff. So that's why I want to get away from that resin and start using the clear slow. But then I started running into problems with the temperature with that one too. And I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? So yeah, it's the white, it's a pain. It's a little bit cheaper. And like I said, it's totally opaque. Like there's no, you don't need to be like, oh, is the tube going to show? There's no way the tube can show. It just won't. And that's one of the reasons why I started using it. I'm like, I don't ever want to paint tubes anyway, so I'm going to use this resin. And, but the problem is the coloring of it, the recipes and things don't really, you can go from a liquid pigment like mine into the white, and it'll work okay. You're not going to get the same color as if you pour that stuff into clear, but you can go that way. But I have all my dye recipes for the Alumilite white that you don't need opaque, right? So I always just use the translucent Alumilite dyes, but those don't transfer to clear resin. All my recipes were useless. So I had to completely redo every single every color recipe that I had, and it took me a year at this point. And through that process, I'm like, well, I know everything about pigments. I may as well sell them. That's why I'm selling pigments now. What was it that got you started? Yeah, so it was because I didn't, so way back in the day, originally, I bought polyester resin. That was because everybody was using it 15 years ago. That's what you made pen blanks with. And so I bought polyester resin. I did one casting with it, and I literally threw a gallon of that stuff in the trash. It smelled so terrible. And then I found, I actually happened upon Curtis Seebeck. He had a YouTube channel, and he had 2 videos, one using Alumilite Clear, and back then there was no slow version of it. Alumilite Clear, and he also had a video showing Alumilite White. And I realized that there's this one that's opaque. And for pen blanks, I'm like, you never have to paint tubes. So that was the reason that I went with that. I also use the clear version too for other things, because you don't want to use white with like wood and all that kind of stuff. It's a softer resin, which can be advantageous. It's like it turns like butter. Like, I mean, you can just hack at this stuff. And that's why when people tell me that they blew up a blank with Alumilite white, I'm like, man, you need to look at how you're turning, because it's impossible unless you're doing things wrong, because it's so soft. But the problem is it doesn't polish as well as the harder stuff. So there's give and take with it, but you're much better off now that we have the opaque pigments and all that stuff. You can do opaque colors, but you can also use clear resins with micas and do whatever, and you can cast wood in it and it works fine. Like, it does everything you want going with a clear. There's no good reason to use the white, and there's so many disadvantages. But I learned how to use it, and so I was, here's the thing. There's a reason why nobody else on the planet sells blanks made with Alumilite white. It's a pain, and most people are not willing to mess with it. I just already knew I had the skill set, and I just kept going with it. But all right, so we're gonna do red and white, and hopefully this works. This is another little experiment, but after I've done a few tests and things using the chilled clear slow. And I pretty much have no doubt that that was the problem. It was not, I needed a thicker starting point, basically. And the other nice thing is you don't have to wait. So I have a feeling that the amount of time that it takes to get to the point where you can pour is longer. So it probably is, if you chill the resin, you're gonna have more working time, which means it takes longer to get to that point where you can pour. But you have to kind of watch out, because it actually gets pretty darn thick. So if you're in a shop that's like 80, 85 right now, and you're used to certain temperatures with clear slow, or even just the regular clear, let's just for instance say that you're normally pouring right now at like 130 Fahrenheit with, like I said, leaving the jug out, it's 80 or something in your shop. If you do this, because that's what I was doing. I mean, I was pouring stuff at probably not 130, but like 120, I think. 125, maybe. So, I mean, I was getting up there. Like, I was trying to get it to the point where it was pretty thick, but I've switched from 125 to 105. If I waited till 125, it'd be setting up using the chilled resin. Like, it'd be hard. Or so thick that it just wouldn't even pour. Okay, I gotta make sure I'm pulling the right jugs. Jeez. Interesting fact, if you mix the Alumilite white, and I forget which one is which, you technically can mix the Alumilite, like the part A from Alumilite white with the part B from clear. And I forget how it works, but basically one of the ways of doing that, let's see, how would I have done that? I want to say that if because I accidentally did this one time. I want to say if you mix it's the part B. If you mix part A with the Alumilite clear or clear slow with the part B from the Alumilite white, I don't recommend doing this. You're not going to get good results or anything. But that part B will accelerate. I mean, you'll have like 0 minutes it hardens. I wouldn't trust it. All right, so third thing, we're just having a field day today. I'm chatty today. Let's see here. What am I doing? Number 3, red and white. So we're doing 6 blanks, 45 each. 6 times 45. 270. Yeah, so that's fine. 270. And then 135 in each cup. And then let's see. I'm gonna try to recreate exactly what we did. Here they are. 4% red. I don't have a red color. Like I said, if you buy the 5 pigments that I came out with, Army Green is going to be a little bit more on the translucent side, let's say a little bit. It's not like anywhere near like the yellow or anything like that, but it's going to be a little bit more see-through. And the navy blue also, even though it's darker, the blues tend to be a little bit more on the see-through side. Not bad or anything like that, but compared to the robin egg, that stuff is going to be very opaque, not see-through. And then the watermelon and coral on the not see-through side, but I'd still probably go with like a 1, like just to kind of give you an idea, like 1% is probably going to get you a decent opacity on those ones. Whereas like you could probably go with like a 0.5%. I can't talk, my throat is so dry. I'm dying. I would probably go, if you're going for more opaque, I would probably just lean towards 2%. We'll find out on the tube thing. On this tube test type thing. But 2% is probably going to be fairly safe for opacity kind of stuff on the green and the Army Green and Navy Blue. But we'll get definitive numbers and see what's going on. Now, if you're really going for minimal bleed though, you can crank it up. This red tends to be a little bit more on the see-through side. It can be. I'm going 4% with the red. That's what we did on the original thing. And then for the white, I'm going to do 2.5%, which is kind of overkill, but it also kind of helps things not tend to want to bleed as much the more you put in. So we're trying to stack everything in our favor, basically, with this. All right, let's go for let's see, is there any questions here? So David's got a question. I use PVC, larger diameter. So P-Town Subby has a 7/8. We got a 7/8 by 6, which is a good, and honestly, I would probably go with these, but here's the kicker. The wider the hole, the more things tend to kind of mix up and bleed. So, if you go up to like a 1.5-inch PVC pipe, you get a lot of bleed, unless you're very careful about how you pour and really get it up to a thick, like a higher temperature. So you can order silicone molds, and there are people that make them. I don't sell anything, and frankly, I'm probably kind of getting away from the silicone mold, the pen blank things anyway, a little bit, but there are other people that make them. Olive Frogs on Etsy. She's kind of on maternity leave right now, but she makes some that go up to 7/8, and there's, I think, a couple other people, but you can find them. 7/8, I think that's probably about as big as you're going to get, I guess. What I wish people made, I do like the size of the PVC pipes. I refuse to sit there and spray every single pipe every time, and the demolding's a pain. So that's why I went with silicone. It's easier in general to kind of get through everything. But 7/8 can be bit like a little too big. Things get a little dicey. So just be careful with that. If you're going for like color swirls and things like that, just you might need to kind of push the limits and wait till it's a little bit thicker to get like the same results. So just a little caution if you're going bigger and you want to go with silicone. So 7/8, and then like the PVC pipes are like 13/16, I think, or 11/16. So they're kind of like right in between 3/4 and 7/8. The other reason why I also don't like, I like them personally, but the other reason why I went with 3/4 is many people don't have a 13/16 collet. So the collet size, it's very easy to get a 3/4, and if you pour a 3/4 inch blank, everybody can use them. So that's why I went with that. Also, but it also that little bit tighter 3/4 inch hole, even versus like a PVC pipe, everything kind of just plays nicer. You just don't get The reason is the resin doesn't have as much movement area, side to side. The more it can kind of spread out, the more you get bleed. All right, so I got to get going here. What's our numbers here? 135. I got to switch views. Ooh. A little bit extra is not that big of a deal. Jim, can I use clear poly or epoxy? You can. I don't know. I just use CA probably. If we're talking like pen blanks. If you want to do that, I don't find it necessary, really. I think that you're better off, if you're having issues getting them polished, then you might look into your polishing techniques. You know, let's see, what are we doing, 135? I don't know if you guys can see, but I mean, even this part B is a lot thicker, just pouring out of the jug. And I got to be honest, I sat there and talked for a while. If you're doing this and really trying to maximize, like, you know, we talk about temperature, and I think I've said this quite a few times. It's really not the temperature. The temperature has nothing, like that in itself, temperature, has nothing to do with the pouring. What we're doing is we're using temperature as a gauge to get to a certain thickness, viscosity of the resin. It's the thickness of the resin that's really the key factor here with this time thing. So, you know, and that's why the cooler the temperature, or, you know, if you put it in the fridge, it thickens up. So just, you know, kind of keep that in mind, that it's viscosity. But if what we're doing is trying to maximize that, then you kind of want to pull it out of the fridge and get going. You know, not talk. It'll help a little bit. But I do think it's important. I think that leaving it in the fridge, like like storing it there permanently, as opposed to like, because back in the day, people would be like, oh, just put it in there for like 30 minutes. And that's fine, that'll kind of help, but I think you're better off chilling the entire jug, getting the entire mass of that, gallon jug or whatever you've got, to that temperature is a much better way to go. 135. Oh, went a little bit over. So the other interesting thing is it also seems to, using the chilled resin, it's been kind of a little bit, this isn't like every single time, and there has been differences, but so the other thing that I've kind of noticed is, I did 140. Whatever. 3.5. The one thing I didn't think about is there's also going to be residue coming out of these cups, but I think we're okay. So 3.5 grams. I got to pay attention to what I'm doing here. What I was about to say is, what I've noticed is sometimes certain colored pigments tend to, like, I don't know, like heat the resin. You could have the same amount of resin in 2 cups, made out of, like, the cups are made out of the same material, and, you know, like nothing different except the pigment in there. You mixed all the resin all at once, and what I found is sometimes you get like varying speeds that it heats up quicker or slower, like depending on the color, right? Typically red seems to be a kind of a faster one, but it seems like the chilling it seems to help with that. It doesn't run away as quick. I don't know what the deal is with that one. And then this is 4%, so we got 5.6 grams. Oh, went a little over. That's cool. No big deal. Okay, so what I'm going to do is we're going to try, I'm just going to leave these in these cups because I can kind of keep a better eye. I find the round cup, it's just easier because of the way that I take the temperature. I stir it up just a little bit to kind of get, what ends up happening is the outsides, the very core, the center of this cup is going to heat up faster. That's the way resin works. The outsides are going to be a little bit cooler. And so what, for me, it's to get kind of more consistent results. I don't know if this is true or not or what. It's the way I do it. I give it a little stir, then I take the temperature. It just hopefully gets kind of everything mixed a little bit better. I don't know if you need to do that. Maybe you could just leave it there, don't touch it, and take a temperature. But I stir it, so I've found that the round cup is just much easier to just give it a little stir rather than these like half moon things. It just does it. I don't know. I don't trust the temperatures as much. So what I'm going to do here, I think that I'm going to be able to pour around 110, and that's pushing the limits according to my temperatures and so far what I've gotten. I think 110 is kind of pushing the limits a little bit. It's going to be pretty thick, but that's what we want. So I'll probably pour them into this cup at 100. All right. Now, again, had I left the jugs sitting out, if they were at room temperature right now, which is 78 degrees, I mean, I'd be waiting until like 130, and it still probably wouldn't. Well, obviously it doesn't work. I mean, we waited till, I don't know what we waited till the first time. 115, and it was, I don't know what, that was 524. I mean, it was maybe 75 degrees at the most, I think, and we waited till 115. So temperatures have gone up since we first did this. So I would be waiting till probably 125, maybe 130. And it still wouldn't really work because it started at a thinner viscosity. It's just crazy. I think this is going to work this time though. Oh, so on that resin, yeah, it is softer. That stuff doesn't polish as, it's different than a clear, that stuff. So like Alumilite white and black, I don't think there's, I don't know. If I remember correctly, I think they're about a 72, Shore D 72, whereas clear is 78 or 80 maybe, probably actually 80. So it's fairly, I mean, it turns great. That's the nice thing. But yeah, it is a little bit harder to polish. I would just put CA on it. Don't, just make sure, no matter what you're going to put on top of it, if you're putting like some sort of a top coat, don't polish it to like the, 50 billionth grit degree. I would probably stop at like, I don't know, like you could probably I would probably stop at 600. Just make sure that they're not very deep. You're not like really pressing with that 600. Somewhere between 600 and 1,000 is as far as I would sand it. Then put the coating on, CA or whatever you're putting on there. That's what I would recommend. Now, if we're not talking about pens, then you can just use they have like coating epoxies out there. Alumilite's got one called Quick Cure, I believe, and that can work. So like if you're talking about doing like your walking sticks or something like that, if it's like a bigger thing with a lot of shapes and things going on, sometimes it's a lot easier just to use something that's got a longer working time, and CA can be kind of tough in that instance. I mean, like even on stoppers, sometimes CA is kind of, depending on how much shaping and stuff is going on, CA can be kind of tough to put on sometimes. So in that case, like an epoxy, but most epoxies have such a long working time that you either have, like I've set up a thing on my lathe where it spins super slow, so it doesn't sag. You don't get sag like for big bowls and things like that. It's just spinning very slow. It's actually using a rotisserie spit motor. It was very complicated to hook this thing up, but well, it's sort of complicated. I had to get a little crafty with things. Because if you go too fast, then it ends up flinging it outwards. It has to just be kind of not allowing it to kind of settle, but also not move. So again, so we got 84. So in this case, you know, the red seems to be heating up a lot more. We got 87.5 with the red versus like 84.5 with the white. So red, you got to watch out a little bit with the red. It tends to accelerate the heating. So chilling the resin didn't help with this test. There's also quite a bit of red pigment in here. That can also change how this all works. I think if I dropped, like if I put half as much of that pigment, the red pigment in here, probably wouldn't be as fast. I think that's kind of from my experience what I've seen. Yeah, so in Jim, with the white, for anybody, I don't think there's any way for you to pour Alumilite white or the black version, those, you know, but Alumilite white is the one that kind of comes up. You can't pour that vertically. It's not going to work. It's water thin, literally, no matter, and there's no amount, you can't wait till the working time is at the end. You've got to mix it up and pour it pretty much. The thicker, it literally just fires. Like there's not really much of a window where it's thick. It's either just water thin or hardened. And so that's the thing. You can't pour it vertically. So I always pour the bricks. And I mean, it works okay with that. It's okay, but it's still such a pain to work with that I just don't think it's worth the hassle for people. So we're at about 91 there, 95 there. So they're still going to be a little bit off, you know, which can have an effect on things. I mean, that also may be what that could mean is that this is going to be thicker than the white. And, you know, we really want to get the white pretty thick because it's heavier. So maybe, I don't know, we'll have to see how this works out in the end. Maybe this is just not a good combination to pour, you know, this split cup kind of thing. I don't know. Because I did get away with doing a blue and a yellow and it seemed to work fine. But those two pigments, they're not different in like weight, really. I'm sure there's some difference, but no noticeable difference. Whereas the white is extremely heavy and the red is not. It's definitely a lighter pigment, so like weight-wise, mass. So I don't know. I think we're ready to pour these guys in. No, not yet. 98. It's a little bit thick. I'm actually kind of surprised. I honestly think that the amount of time that I let it kind of just sit on the counter kind of influenced things, because most of my tests, by the time I'm getting to about 100, I mean, it's pretty thick. Quite thick, usually. That one actually is thicker. It's crazy. I don't know. I don't know what's happening, guys. 97 there. Yeah, that's pretty thick. Okay. Okay, we're at 100. I'm going to wait till 105 because this seems to be kind of going slow. Oh, so Jim asked instead of CA glue. Yeah, you can. Yeah. I think I definitely want to wait till 110. This red. So this is still, I mean, it's still pretty thin. We really want to wait till this stuff gets pretty thick. I'm really surprised. This is actually on the it's on the thinner side compared to what I've been doing. Maybe it's a little bit warmer in the shop. I don't know. It's definitely better than if I had left it sitting on the countertop, though. That is for sure. Because so we're at 107 right now. I mean, I think I can maybe wait till like 112, 115 to pour this stuff. I think I'll pour it into the split cup at 110. We'll see what happens there. 110 red, based on the red. It's at 109 right now. Okay, so we're there, 111-ish. Okay. Oh, I kind of got some. Did I get some in here? Shoot. That's not helping anything. Okay, fixed that situation. Now I got to kind of hurry here. So for the Pen Blank Club folks, I got a secret project going on. That's going to be the second one, and then of course the first one is the patriotic, blanks, and half of those are going to be the one that I did, like where we poured, red and white and then blue on top. And then half of them, I poured some that were, singles, individuals, like 6 blue blanks and 6 of the red and whites. So let's see if I can get a temperature reading in here. Huh, 118, that's weird. This is still pretty liquidy. I mean, I'm not really... I'm really surprised. I really thought we could pour at a much lower temperature. The white's at 113. I'm going to keep waiting just a little bit longer here. Really want to get that stuff thick. Hopefully I don't wait too long and it gets too thick, All right, let's give it a whirl. Oh, there was a chunk of something in there. Yes. That's looking more like what I would expect. That's looking good, guys. Ooh, I don't think we're gonna get the 6th one. Kind of forgot. You really want to pour a little bit more. Fill your split cup a little bit more than. It'll be fine. I'll get it out. But this is looking. I think these are going to be exactly what I wanted. The first time. Shoot, I'm running out of pressure pots here. All right. Whew. All right. One thing that I like to do with the split cups is I usually like to just kind of clean out this like nozzle area, because it starts to kind of build up and it makes it harder to kind of pour, you know, for the two colors to kind of pour together. I like having, like, frankly, I wish this was like actually a little bit of a bigger kind of mouth kind of thing. But I like to kind of clean that out just to, I don't know. I think it helps. I think it if you just let it build up, eventually you really wouldn't have a spout at all. And I don't think it'd work as well, possibly. So anyway, so don't forget, guys, the Pigment pre-order is on. I'm almost done bottling everything at this point. I got most of them in bottles. The problem is my labels don't come until Wednesday. And so, like I said, I just kind of estimated. I bought so much pigment before the launch. I don't know how interested people are going to be at the launch kind of thing. And so that's why I'm doing like a pre-launch. You guys know first. So everybody on the stream, you got the first, wave of, okay, so it's ready to go. And the only thing is I'm going to restock this stuff. So it's not like a big deal if I run out. The thing is, if you want to get it right away, if you want to be first in line and make sure that you have a pigment coming on the first wave of shipping, that's what the pre-order's for. Just so, I kind of know how much I've got. You guys, all the early adopters get in and get theirs. Then I can reorder and rebottle everything. But so I get the labels on Wednesday. I'm hoping to start shipping things, these pre-orders, probably maybe Friday next week. If not, then like Monday. Father's Day is kind of in the middle of that stuff, so it might be Monday, the following Monday. But they should be getting ready to go. And there's 20% off during the launch, so make sure to check out that link that's right up at the top of the screen there. Right? Yeah, the pinned one at the top. I would try to copy it, but I'm not going to try and copy it. So like I said, up at the top of the chat, and there's also, so that link, so but the discount code, if you click on the link that's pinned to the top, it should automatically give you the apply the discount thing. But make sure when you're checking out, make sure that 20% off has been applied. That's not, well, so here's a link. Here's another one of those links. That's not what I wanted. I wanted that. Color Lab is the code word. Okay, so just in case if for some reason you get to the final checkout page thing and it hasn't applied the discount, enter Color Lab for the discount, and you get 20% off on the launch. And I'm going to be putting out an email newsletter on Wednesday. So the email people will be the second in line, but then I'm also going to be blasting Instagram and all that kind of stuff. And eventually everybody will have access to that launch, the 20% off thing. And the 20% off is probably going to go, I set it up to go till, it's going to be a while, because I'm not even shipping anything for a week, and I'm not even posting or doing the marketing stuff for a couple weeks. So it'll be good, valid until the 22nd. And I might even extend that, possibly, we'll see. So. Oh yeah, the AAW, nice. Well, have fun at the AAW symposium. Where's that one at? St. Paul, Minnesota. Sweet. Yeah, have fun with that. So let's see, Robin was asking, can you soak them in alcohol? What's the question? Oh, so the mixing cups. Yeah, so it's 3D print. I don't know. It's 3D printed material. It might work. I'm not sure. It would depend on the material. Yes, you could if it was like HDPE. I know that people sell these little split cups, and like there's silicone ones that should be okay. I don't think the alcohol will hurt it. Acetone with silicone, not a great idea. It'll kind of it tends to damage silicone. So like even with your silicone molds, if you need to wipe off or do anything, don't use acetone on them. Denatured alcohol is a better option on silicone for sure. Letting it just sit there on silicone though, I don't know. If you can just wipe it, that'd be better. Let's just go with that. Go with that answer. Yeah. Let's see. I'm going to scroll up and just make sure I didn't miss any. I was kind of half. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I don't think I missed any questions up above. I was kind of halfway trying to pay attention and also not mess things up. So anyway, guys, I'm pretty excited about the Pigment launch. So that's pretty fun. And I'm excited to see how these experiments go. I'll be very, be very interested to see if we got some of those higher amounts that, we put in 12%. I really want to see if that doesn't cure. Excuse me, or I don't know. I'm really interested to see, because I've been kind of complaining a little bit about that yellow pigment. And like I said, it's not just mine. It's all of them are subject to. Yellow is just kind of a weaker color, let's say. Pretty much no matter which company. And I've noticed that even in mica powders, a lot of the golds and yellows are super weak. You got to put a lot in there. And like, frankly, you're not going to get it to the point where it's like opaque, let's say. So it's something that is prevalent, no matter what. Yellow just seems to be a weaker pigment. But if I can double the amount that I'm putting in there, that might kind of change things. So it's kind of interesting. It's a lot of pigment to put in there. That's like, I don't advise anybody put 10% or any of that stuff in there, but I don't know. In some cases, maybe you might need to if it works. I don't know. We'll see. So anyway, guys, I hope you have a great rest of the day. This is a pretty long one, but we had a lot of experiments and a lot of talking. I was gabby today. So next week we'll get some results on these. I'm not sure. I might do something else in addition to that. Actually, I think might have a pen. Possibly in addition to these things. I might end up doing like the turning and stuff whenever I get time. Like turning 10 of those things, Sierra Blanks, doesn't sound like a really fun, and just polishing them on the stream doesn't sound as much fun as like making a pen. It's supposed to be a surprise though. I don't know. We'll see what's going on next week. I'll think of something fun. So anyway, guys, I hope you have a great rest of the evening, and I'll see you guys all on the next stream.